Thank you for joining us this morning here at Prepper Talk Radio here on K-Talk. I should say the all-new K-Talk Media, KTKK. Feel free and please take a look at our website if you haven't already, as well as PrepperCon.com, PreparedGuy.com. I am Shane of PreparedGuy.com, here with Scott, Mr. PrepperCon himself, of course.
Good morning and welcome back. It's good to have you in studio.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad to be back. You know, I don't mind traveling, but I just, especially at sensitive times like this, I don't like being away.
I understand.
Thank you for understanding, and thank you for covering for me last week. I know it can always be difficult doing it by yourself.
Well, yeah, and I left you high and dry 2 weeks prior, so
that's all right. I had guests. We had a
guest.
But yeah, thank you for joining us. And I want to make sure that first of all, before I forget, Survival Medical, our wonderful sponsor, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kits tougher than nature. These are designed to last 20 years. Buy it, stick it with your food storage, and literally, well, don't forget about it. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So that's the key to, I think, preparedness in general is don't forget about it, but don't worry about it.
Well, I think the key is more than anything. Sorry for clearing my throat on air, but more than anything is to be aware, right? The whole concept of preparedness is awareness. A lot of people last night were posting, keep your head on a swivel, and I'm like, okay, that's normal, that's every day. You know, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what's going on, be aware of what you have, where it is, and how to use it.
That's absolutely true. Always have your head on a swivel. I mean, you know, preppers we can be pretty intense.
Yep.
And I think
when the crap hits the fan, we can be intense.
Well, I haven't heard that one before. That's a new one.
Intense. Yeah. Tense.
I hope not. I hope not to be in a tent. But there's so many things I want to talk about today. And I think one of the things I really wanted to cover is, you know, I want to say, first of all, let's take a break from politics. And let's say congratulations, Mr. Trump. Hopefully you will do if not everything, but most everything you've promised to do. So, but one thing I'm going to say real quick is it's not over. It's not over yet. He hasn't been elected yet. So, like Scott's saying, keep your head on a swivel. And that may be a little bit of an intense saying to say keep your head on a swivel, but stay aware and don't let down your guard. Just because, I mean, today things look great. It's a beautiful sunny day for November in Utah, and things are looking up for the country that we've elected Trump. But don't let that get your guard down. Don't let that comfort you too much, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
The other thing is it's just another day. Today is just another day.
Yeah, that's
true.
You
know, start fresh. Reach your hand out and thank and love your neighbor. And this is a time for America to really come back together. And when we face disasters, when we face challenges in life, we want to be able to rely on our neighbors, rely on our friends, create a network of people that we can rely on. Because all too often we forget about somebody in a disaster until it's too late, or we don't have the right resources. And that's what prepping's all about, is creating a resource group that can work together and overcome any kind of challenge. And today the fun thing is we're going to be talking more about bugging out than anything else. We're going to talk about the 4Runner Escape and Evade that we've built, why we built it, what it's for, but we're also going to be talking about the whole concept of bugging out, which for most people is an absolute don't do, because they don't have the right resources. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what you need to be able to make that happen, and that it's not something you can just do and think you're going to be okay, because 99% of us don't have the right
and preparing required for bugging out, most definitely. And the thing that comes to my mind is prepping is definitely better with friends. You know, the mindset of the lone wolf is not only dangerous, it's difficult. I mean, some of us, you know, we kind of live our lives as a bit of a lone wolf. I know I do, to an extent. And mainly because, you know, I have good friends like you, but I don't see you every day. I don't see a lot of my prepping friends every day, and so I feel somewhat isolated in preparing. You know, I'm pretty intense, and I try not to come across that way to my brothers and friends and family because it tends to kind of push them away, and that's the absolute opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish. But I see that family and friends are starting to come around, and especially during this election cycle.
Oh yeah.
People are waking up. They're seeing, okay, wow, everybody, there's corruption out there, huh? I didn't realize that before, and I mean that's just one little teeny aspect, but people are seeing more reasons to be prepared. So don't let this election cycle, don't let the results of the election lull you into complacency. So that's my prepper tip number 27 for this morning.
Absolutely.
And of course, I've got other prepper tips as well for you this morning. Go ahead, Scott.
And I think this conversation that we're kind of leading into is the whole goal is to help people be better prepared. Always. That's the focus of the show. We want people to be better prepared. We want to give them simple solutions. And so when you're thinking about emergency preparedness, when you're thinking about being a prepper or disaster response, it comes down to the simplest things possible to solve a problem. Being creative in your processes, being creative in what you can and can't do. We talk about gardening a lot. That's one of the most self-reliant things you can do. That's really what prepping goes down to is self-reliance. And it's not just an individual, but it's a community thing. Working together, finding people that share that same belief system, have the camaraderie that you can work together.
And I think that leads us perfectly into this bugging out topic. I think there's obviously a lot of misconceptions out there, and those of us who are involved in the prepper community are, I think, perfectly aware that it's not going to work to say, okay, when it hits the fan, I'm just going to grab my rifle and go out in the wilderness and hunt and survive.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in Utah that think that's what they're going to do, but then they forget that Utah has got one of the highest density numbers of or population of hunters. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be out there shooting at the same animal, and everyone's going to be hungry, so they're going to be fighting over those animals, and it's going to be a big, big problem.
Yeah, I think for me and a lot of us, that's a pretty common sense that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. So don't you rely on that as your primary. I'm not going to worry about anything. I've got a rifle. I've got some supplies. I can go out and survive. Okay, that may be true, but how many other people are thinking about that as well? And for myself and my family, I've come to realize that is not really truly an option at all for us. Yep. Because I've got 5 kids and a wife who's not a hunter, who's not really an outdoor person. So I've got to be able to plan for my family and to take care of them in whatever way possible. And so our plan for now is to bug in, is to shelter in place. But ultimately, and our goal truly is to bug out.
Yeah.
But it's not a last minute thing. Oh, we need to get out of here. Let's bug out. Boom. That's just not a realistic plan. It takes a lot of planning in order to bug out.
Yeah. First and foremost, you need to know where you're going. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times people think, we're just going to head to the hills and we'll find a place and we'll be fine. And there's a lot of criteria that go into understanding the right place to go. And if you haven't been there multiple times and prepped that area, what I mean is there a water source there? Mm-hmm. Is there a shelter solution already in place, or do you have something that can be rapidly deployed there, and do you have a pad for it, a location to put it so that it's protected against the elements, so that you're not going to have water seeping into your shelter or other problems? Is it rodent and insect free as much as possible? Mm-hmm. Those are some of the basic things.
Very basics, yeah, very basic. And I think one thing that we all need to take into consideration, yes, there may possibly be the need here in Utah to evacuate immediately. I'm not going to call that a bug out situation. I'm going to call that an evacuation situation. Bugging out is done on purpose. It's not done without planning. So in bugging out, what are your plans with your family? Are you talking to your other brothers and sisters and parents and friends and neighbors about options for bugging out? And like Scott's saying, where will you go? That is first of all the number one big concern. If you don't have those plans, then you should plan to shelter in place.
Absolutely. And sheltering in place is great. It gives you the shelter right away. It gives you, hopefully you've got stored water and stored food and stored tools and resources and your heirloom seeds ready to go so that you can just start planting those as soon as spring hits. But your home, that location, and it's easier to defend than a foreign location, something you haven't experienced before. Sheltering in place is always your first and best bet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we have a disaster, an earthquake, that kind of dishevels the entire plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you now have to create a secondary shelter, depending on the structure that you have. Either move to a family location that's safer, or put something up in your yard that you can live in while you rebuild, or while you're waiting to be rebuilt.
Yeah, those of you who have, say, a family cabin or family property that have been in the family for years, you guys are lucky. I mean, your family's been prepping this area for maybe decades.
Yeah.
If you have a family cabin, and so that's one thing I'm working towards for my kids, is okay if I'm not immediately or directly involved in some kind of a bug out situation, I want to be able to set up that opportunity for my kids as a getaway, during the week, for vacations, but as a place of retreat, a place of shelter, a redoubt, whatever you want to call it, so that place is already ready. It's got trees growing. It's already very a viable place to stay and survive if and when it comes down to them having to leave their homes. They'd have a place to go to.
Oh, yeah. And if the climate's fair for that land, if you've got that land, go put some fruit trees and some nut trees up there, because they take very little maintenance from year to year. Go up in the spring, trim back the tree. Go up in the fall, trim back the tree. Make sure that it's growing correctly. They're not going to produce every year, but when they start producing, that's a bounty
and you got to start it now, because they take a long time to grow.
Exactly.
And keep in mind, there's also such great technology like solar and solar pumps, and where you can water those things. You can set up a system, and it'll water it automatically.
Yeah, you don't even
with
have to do that.
timers and solar and battery and wind power, where you can water your crops, and you're not even there. So, just some really great stuff that we could talk about in future segments about how to set up your bug out location. But I guess getting around to one thing that we've been working on, as Scott mentioned, we've been working on we're calling the 4Runner or the PrepperCon 4Runner Evader. And what it is it's not really a bug out vehicle. It kind of is, but it kind of isn't.
It's a hybrid.
It's very much a hybrid. When you think of a bug out vehicle, I think a lot of people think of the 1 ton, or excuse me,
the deuce and a
half, the big
6-wheel, big giant diesels,
the big military vehicles, or even a 1970s carbureted Bronco or Blazer, or truck or something like that, which makes a lot of sense because there's no electronics, not necessarily going to be affected, or not at all going to be affected by an EMP. Whereas modern electronics, it's still questionable what's going to happen, and we're not going to talk about EMPs, but we've chosen, or rather, I should say, I've chosen to turn my personal 4Runner into this kind of community response vehicle is what we're calling it. Calling it the Evader, because really the intent is, I don't know that a instant bug out situation is likely.
Right.
To just say, okay, got a bug out. Are you prepared? No? Okay, stay home. Now, I think what's more likely is that we'll continue to fall into chaos. Things get more difficult. It gets dangerous to be out. So the idea of the 4Runner Evader is just as it sounds, to evade, to avoid. So what do we say in a gunfight? What's the best way to survive a gunfight? Not get into one, to stay out of the gunfight. It's kind of the same thing with the 4Runner Evader, is to evade and avoid gangs, marauders, groups who might want and need resources.
Well, and I think even more importantly is it's designed so that it can go across multiple types of terrain easily. Difficult terrain, because after a disaster, what's going to hit Utah first, or what's going to hit your area first, is natural disasters. Those are the things you got to worry about more often than not, because those happen without any kind of cause. It's just boom. Oh, okay. I guess we're having a blizzard.
You have to be prepared in the moment.
Oh, we're having an earthquake. Great. There's no warning system leading up to those. Typically, right? So the thing that I love about the 4Runner is it gives you the maneuverability, it gives you the handleability, but I mean, it's got icon suspension. Yeah, give me the details on that suspension.
So the idea with, and we're coming up on a break here, timer's not working, so I'm not sure exactly when we're going to be cutting out, but the idea of the 4Runner Evader is to move quietly. Quietly is a big key with the Evader, as well as quickly and smoothly over rough terrain. Especially in a disaster, you're going to experience probably rough terrain. You're going to have to go off-road. You may have, telephone poles or trees that have fallen over the road and obstacles. And so the idea is to be able to navigate that quickly and quietly so that you don't get caught up and get stuck, and then you get in trouble.
Yeah, so the sooner you can get a vehicle capable of going around and over and through these things, the better.
Yep.
When we get back from the break, we're going to talk more about this. As a reminder, we're brought to you by Survival Medical. That's survival-medical.com. Check them out. They've got an amazing deal going on right now on their website. Get your family prepared. This is the best kit. We keep it in the Evader. We keep it in all of our cars.
Absolutely. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio. Just a couple of preppers talking about prepping. And that's what we love to do best, don't we, Scott?
Every week. We actually have a ton of conversations, but every Wednesday we actually get it broadcast live. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the K-Talk family. If you haven't noticed, we've got a new website, ktalkmedia.com. You can check out the local weather, the news, the updates on the election. You can also see quick tips that we're going to be giving. Every week we're going to start doing a new segment called Quick Tips with Prepper Talk Radio. And this week, do you want to do it now or do you want to wait till the end? Let's wait till the end.
Do a quick tip?
Let's wait to the end. We've got a good one. We're going to wait to the end.
I've got a bunch of great.
That way you got to stay tuned in, for another 35, 40 minutes.
Absolutely, and I think you'll like my quick tips.
I like them myself. So, as a reminder, we're brought to you by Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. Now, if you haven't been to their website, you need to get to their website. This is, in my opinion, the best medical gear for preppers because you can hold on to it. You can store it. You can open it and reseal it. It stays good. It stays intact. It doesn't expire quickly like traditional first aid kits. And they've got so many different types that they've got a kit that's going to work for you. The 4Runner Escape, the 4Runner Evade, it's got first aid kits in there from we've got a couple buckets. The PrepperCon truck that we're going to be wrapping again soon, we had to do an upgrade to a diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Had to. Air quotes. I was so stoked to do this. That's going to be more of a community response vehicle. I'm going to be putting some drawers in there so we can actually have pull-out medical food and water filtration and water storage solutions that we can disperse in case of local emergencies, where we can actually be part of the solution. We work closely with CERT. They've got local chapters here in Utah. And CERT is a community emergency response team. They go
Each
out.
community has their own specific little team. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you really want to get involved and want to be part of the solution, get involved with CERT. Get your CERT training. We've actually, if you're up in the Davis area, Bountiful area, they've got classes starting in February for the next CERT round. My wife and I are going to be at that, and we're going to get our CERT certifications.
Down where I live, the city has I think annually has a CERT training. So yeah, that's a perfect way because there's no cost to it. Last time when I did it, there was no cost.
Yeah, it's free.
So, but it's absolutely good information. You're going to be very helpful in your community if you have this at your fingertips.
Absolutely,
good stuff. So so back to the community response vehicle, the 4Runner Evader. Okay, we were talking about how a lot of people think of these bug out vehicles are older vehicles that are EMP resistant or military vehicles. My problem has always been with those vehicles. Is that they're kind of big and slow and noisy.
They're lunky.
And they're clunky. They're not very agile. And if you need to move a lot of people and a lot of gear all at once, that's probably your best option.
Right.
And if you can afford one and have it sit in your side of your house, more power to you. I think I would like to have one for myself. I'll take a Unimog, though. That's what I want.
Unimog is very ideal.
A brand new one, not one of the old ones.
I'd rather have an older one. But then, that's a discussion for another day.
Yes. So the concept is a very reliable vehicle. Of course, in my opinion, you can't beat Toyota. And the 4Runner being an SUV, it's four-wheel drive. This particular one is a V8, so it has plenty of torque. And mine has a jump seat, so I can carry my entire family in there. I can carry 7 passengers in there.
For those of you who don't know, jump seats are the seats in the back that fold up into the wall.
They're small. They're only meant for kids, really.
And it's good thing your kids are small.
Yes,
so that works perfect.
I have 2 kids small enough that still fit in the back there, and my other older kids now have their own vehicles. So if need be, they can chase us out there. But the idea is quiet, reliable, efficient, powerful. And again, reliable. And I threw the reliable in there twice because, what happens if you break down? You've got an older 70s Bronco that needs maintenance. If you have the ability to upgrade it, and But really, the idea is that, okay, with the newer vehicles, you have really superior suspension. You've got superior reliability to older vehicles. And I won't get into that, but
you just did, though. You just
I won't get into it further. Let me say that. I won't get into it further because I could continue to go on with that, but then it would stray the conversation off dramatically. So the first thing we did to the 4Runner is, and I've had a similar suspension on it than this, is to upgrade the suspension. And the reason we upgraded the suspension is in order to be able to move safely and quickly over rough terrain. Now, a stock suspension, without getting into too much detail, which I can easily here, so Scott, feel free to stop me if I get this off track. and we upgraded the shocks, the springs, and arms and so forth in order to allow for more travel up and down. And in an off-road vehicle, that has a lot of benefits, both in going slow as well as in going fast off-road.
And the reason you want that is because you're only moving as long as your wheels are on the ground. Traditional suspension, you end up with a wheel off the ground. That's the wheel that's going to spin because that's where all the torque can go.
Absolutely,
it can move.
Exactly. And that's what lockers are for. That's what traction control is for. But absolutely, you want to keep your tires on the ground. That's why you stay in control as well, especially at higher speeds. If you're trying to evade and get away from someone or get through an area quickly and quietly so you're unnoticed. That's really the whole concept of the 4Runner Evader. More of a community response vehicle or a vehicle that can handle these coming difficult times where things are going to be dangerous. You don't want to be out and about and get stuck because then you're really screwed.
And I think the fun part is it's also a roaming billboard for PrepperCon.
It is. And hopefully you've seen me going up and down the I-15. I'm always on I-15.
You're all over
the time,
all over the state,
I-15, all around the place.
I get people talking to me all the time. They're like, "Oh, is that your 4Runner?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, no, that's Shane's." You know, because they see it everywhere and they see me everywhere. But soon the Dodge Ram will be decked out too.
Again.
But
yes,
the Evader, I love the fact that I used to drive a 4Runner. You know, it's one of my favorite vehicles I've ever owned. I needed some more, pulling power and towing power for what I do, and so we got this Dodge. But the beautiful thing about the 4Runner is it's got a small, short turning radius. It's very comfortable. It's got good bucket seats. It handles very well. But then you throw on a better suspension system, and it handles even better.
It is amazing. Now, the suspension that actually we're sponsored by Icon Vehicle Dynamics. You should check them out at Icon Vehicle Dynamics. They're in California. They've been around for a long time. They previously went by another name, Donahoe Racing, and that was probably close to a decade ago. Well, 7 or 8 years ago. I had their original shocks back then, and it makes a world of difference in performance of your vehicle. Now, when you're on the road and you're driving around town, it actually makes a little bit stiffer ride, which I don't even notice anymore. It's still a comfortable ride, but it dramatically, the diameter, the size of the shocks and the upgraded springs and such, increases the load capacity of the vehicle, the towing capacity, in that it doesn't sag as much on the rear end as the stock springs. So I can carry my entire family, all our gear, pull a trailer, and still travel at a higher rate of speed and still keep the wheels on the ground.
As long as the trailer can handle it.
Right, as long as the trailers that's a whole nother topic.
So you're going to need to get a Borderland trailer probably.
That would be, fantastic. I would love to have
heavy-duty suspension, off-road design.
But in talking to the vehicle by itself without a trailer, I can load it up completely with these springs and the suspension and still stay under control. Now, with a stock vehicle, if you load it up, you're maxing out that, especially if you're going over bumps, and you're going to cause some damage.
Well, in the typical, your standard 4Runner out of the box, right? The suspension is designed to absorb.
It's for comfort.
The road, not absorb the big bumps off road. And so what's going to happen is it's going to absorb and kick back, so you're going to bounce a lot more.
That's correct.
And you don't want to bounce.
That's when you're going to lose
control.
control.
You want your wheels on the ground. You want to be in control. And if you're bouncing, you're either A, going too fast, B,
too heavy a load.
It's too heavy a load, or C, too light a load for the suspension, and the suspension is not designed for that. So there's those three things. So the first simplest thing to do is just to upgrade your suspension.
And it truly is the easiest, most simple thing to do. Now with the 4Runner, we went a little more extreme. We went all new springs, kind of heavy-duty springs, and we have hydraulic bump stops. So when we bottom out, We don't bottom out on a hard rubber bump stop. We bottom out on a hydraulic piston, which gives us more travel down. It also gives us more control. So when we don't hit that piston, it's going to absorb the energy rather than bounce us off.
Yep.
We've also done a few other things that way. But what you can do to your vehicle, say you have a stock 4Runner or a Jeep or whatever it might be, is just upgrade the shocks themselves. Not necessarily the springs or any of that kind for load capacity, but just upgrading the shocks from the standard pressurized gas shocks, which really don't, I mean, they may make your ride more comfortable, softer on the road, absorb the small bumps, I would say nicer.
Well, all the shock does is it really absorbs the travel,
Mm-hmm.
right, of the spring. Because the spring's going to absorb the impact, and then it's going to try to recoil back to its normal position. And the
Correct.
shock's
Yep.
there to dampen that recoil, both in and out, so that you're not bouncing, but that you're controlling, you're flowing.
Yeah. Now, when you go and test drive a vehicle, say I want to drive this vehicle, so I need to buy a new vehicle. What is the first thing you're looking for? You're looking for comfort, right? I mean, most people are. They're looking for comfort. They say, "Hey, this ride's really nice," and that's the main thing that these manufacturers take into account. They want it to. They match the tires with. And that's another thing we need to talk about is tires. But they match the tires with the shocks and the suspension in order to give you a nice, comfortable ride, so you'll buy their vehicle. That doesn't mean it's going to perform well off road.
Right.
Or over potholes
or in whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Now think of an urban application, an urban setting, where you're being chased by someone who wants your vehicle, something that you have, and they're big cross gutters or they're big speed bumps, and you've got to slow down for those, or you're going to damage your vehicle. Now with the 4Runner Evader, there's no need to slow down. You speed up. With this new suspension. It's amazing. I mean, it is fantastic. I love taking people on rides. I find a nice big cross gutter where people crawl. They may literally come to almost a stop to go through this cross gutter and come out the other side so they don't lose their oil pan. I literally will speed up, and everyone will kind of clinch and hold their butt cheeks in and wait for this.
Butt cheeks tighten.
Exactly. And wait for this to hit this bump, and then we come through, and it's just so soft and smooth, and everybody just is amazed at the suspension. Now, that's in an urban setting. That's the most obvious benefit to this type of suspension. But also, cornering. Holy cow! If you want to talk sports car feel in an SUV, the cornering is very flat and helps keep you under control. I mean, it truly is amazing.
With a 4Runner, you're going to have it's a higher
higher profile.
Higher profile, so you're going to roll a little bit on around a corner. It's going to tip. But when you upgrade that suspension, that shock, that's going to hold you level. That's amazing.
It really makes a big difference. And that's one thing with an SUV, with a truck, you really need to keep in mind is that because it is higher, it has much more higher tendency to roll. Where like a sports car or even like a Camry, even a standard four-door sedan, you're out on the freeway doing 60, 70 miles an hour. If you lose control, it's most likely going to stay on its wheels and spin around, slide around. So that's definitely safer. Now, with a higher profile vehicle, especially a stock vehicle with the softer shocks, it's more likely if you get sideways, you're going to roll that vehicle.
Wobble and roll. Yeah.
So this type of suspension adds more safety in all aspects. And let me give you a simple example. Say, of course, I'm a Toyota guy. I love Toyotas. So you look at the TRD package on the Toyotas. They come with a higher quality Bilstein shock. And that is the correct way to say it, Bilstein, not Bilstein. I mean, my technical jargon, I love it. So it's a Bilstein shock. And what it is, it's a hydrogen, excuse me, not hydrogen. It's a nitrogen charged shock. So it's better for off-road. It can handle the bumps better. So it's a much better choice than just having a stock gas charged shock. So if you can get the TRD package or some other off-road package on that SUV you buy that comes with upgraded shocks, that's going to make a tremendous difference. The diameter is still about the same diameter as a stock shock, and it will make a big difference. But if you upgrade to these, say the Icon Vehicle Dynamics type system, and there are others out there as well. This is the one I did a lot of research on this, and I've been running them for years. And they stepped up and sponsored us with this suspension system. And in my opinion, it's the best all-around system for any vehicle. The vehicles that they make it for, they don't make it for every vehicle. And the kit we put on was what's called a Stage 5. It just basically includes more components, longer travel, and so forth. But if you just do the basics, upgrading the front shocks, upgrading the rear shocks, and maybe the springs for increased load capacity. And I'm not going to say this is cheap. It's not cheap, but it's not terribly expensive either. The benefit, if you guys like to go off-road, if you like performance in an SUV, this will blow your mind. Just upgrading the shocks and the basic springs will make a tremendous difference. And when you load it down and you go out with a family on for a weekend with the trailer, or to practice your bug out plan, you will notice a big difference.
And the key here is if you're planning to bug out, or if you want to have a vehicle that can respond in a disaster scenario, you need to make sure you're focusing on suspension as well. A lot of people focus on, it's just a 4-wheel drive, we're good.
People want more power.
Or power. You know, if you're not trying to tow something, the power's not the important part. You know, you want to look at the ratios and find out what works best for you, but you know, a big giant truck's not the solution for most people. That's your solution for long-term slow roll. But that's it. You know, the big military vehicles, typically they go 55 to 70 miles an hour tops. And it is a rough ride.
And they're not agile. And if you did get into come across a group that wants to take your stuff, they're probably going to end up taking it because you don't have the speed and the agility to outrun them.
Well, the biggest thing is cornering. It takes a lot of space to turn one of those around.
That too.
You know, to get out of a scenario, it's going to be tough. So you want to have an accessory vehicle like this 4Runner or something else, whatever you find that works for you. But you want to have a vehicle that's quick and nimble that you can get around in. It'll give you the opportunity to respond and to help other people quicker. It'll be better for your family. So think about that as you're putting together your bug out plan. You know, how are you going to get to where you're going? If you're planning on hiking, that's one solution, but it limits what you can take with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we'll get into a few more things on the 4Runner on the other side of the break. We need to talk about a few more sponsors that have helped us out with the build. But of course, this segment and all of our segments, the show is brought to you by Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. Check it out right now. They've got some fantastic deals. They are the only first aid kits designed for long-term storage. So we'll see you on the other side of the break. All right, coming back from the break, you're listening to Shane and Scott here on Prepper Talk Radio, here on the all-new K-Talk Media. Hopefully you've noticed all the nice changes. I think things are really improving nicely.
Absolutely, the website's just beautiful.
Yeah.
The sponsors that we're bringing on, you know, thank you to all of those sponsors who help pay to keep the lights on here at K-Talk. You know, one of the unique things about K-Talk is it's one of the oldest in the nation original talk radio stations. And we're not owned by any large corporations. We're private, we're small, and that gives us a freedom to have conversations like what we're having about prepping. A lot of other stations don't do that, or they have agendas, and we're open. We're talking to the community. We try to keep this as friendly as possible to involve the community because it's the community station at the end of the day. Absolutely,
and I hope you can tell by at least my voice. And I'm so excited about this 4Runner Evader. I just love this thing. Now, I posted a few vehicles. I mean, I love driving this thing. And you know, I've owned the 4Runner for about 8 years now. I put about 200,000 miles on it. And it has never let me down.
Oh, no. They're amazing vehicles.
I am a Toyota guy through and through, and don't let that disparage you what you own or anything. But that's just what I've come to love is a Toyota. But this is not a Toyota commercial, so I apologize. But I had a quick tip for you. What we're going to start doing is quick tips, quick prepper tips, and we'll get back to talking about the 4Runner Evader. So my quick tip...
And bugging out.
And bugging out. No, let's just talk about the 4Runner. I want to know. So my quick tip for the day is go and get yourself a Zippo lighter. Now, why do I say a Zippo lighter? Because you can go over to Blade HQ, not one of our sponsors, let me just say that. One of my favorite places to shop, though. And get yourself a Zippo lighter for $11.50.
Okay. What's so good about a Zippo opposed to just a Bic?
A Zippo lighter is, obviously, it's refillable. That's the first part about it. You can get wicks, you can get additional flints, and it can last you for decades. And what I love about the Zippo lighter, or any refillable lighter for that matter, it doesn't have to be a Zippo. And of course, they have more expensive ones. The least expensive that I've seen is about $11.50, just for their classic refillable Zippo lighter. And in a pinch, you can refill it with pretty much anything. So right now, you can take $20, get yourself a lighter, get a small bottle of lighter fluid, get an extra wick, get extra flints, and you've got something that is a fantastic addition to your preps. Long-term solution. You know, the thing with Zippo lighters, they do evaporate. You fill them up with the lighter fluid, it evaporates. If it just sits there, you know, and you're not using it, it's going to evaporate. So stick it on the shelf. You know, use it if you need to, and stock up on lighter fluid. But for under $20, you can have something that will literally last forever. And you can improvise a wick. You can improvise most of the components of the Zippo lighter, of the refillable lighters. So I think that's just a great addition to your preps.
Keep one in your bucket bag. Keep one in your car. Keep it with you. The important thing is find what works for you and keep that.
Yep.
We talk about EDC, or everyday carry. You know, a lighter is something that's good to have on or near you at all times, especially in a disaster when you've got to find a way to warm yourself up. Or if you need a light. I mean, they work great as a light source at night.
Yeah, in my opinion, don't fall for these fancy storm-proof lighters. You know, I've owned a few, and
they burn out fast.
They work. They burn out fast. They do use butane, which is easy to refill, and butane is fantastic. It's great. But they're very expensive, like $70, $80 for some of these things.
Yep.
And the chance that you'll need to use that in a windstorm.
Well, if you're trying to light a candle in the middle of a hurricane,
right,
you shouldn't be in the hurricane in the first place. You should
There's
have left already.
Yep, there's your basis right there. And then how likely is it for your candle, your fire to stay lit in that type of storm? So you're going to have to create a shelter. You're going to have to create some type of space to build your fire in. So that's going to give you the ability to use pretty much any type of lighting source, whether it be a Bic lighter. Bic lighters are fantastic. Fantastic. Stick in your bug out bag, put it in a Ziploc bag, and forget about it. And they will work 20 years.
I wrap mine in duct tape.
Yep.
So I've got about 10 feet of duct tape wrapped around each of the Bic lighters. But then, they will evaporate, so you've got to make sure you're replacing those because they're very, very difficult to refill.
Keep that Bic lighter in a Ziploc bag, and literally 10 years from now, it's still going to be good.
Absolutely.
And you can always have it with you. So I think Scott has to take off here now.
I got to make sure I'm abiding by the law. I've got to get my vehicle emission, and they scheduled me earlier than I wanted. So, thanks for letting me be part of the show today. Keep talking about that Evader. I'll be tuned in from the road.
I'll be talking their ears off about it. So, absolutely, thanks, Scott. And I'll have to see you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, so the 4Runner Evader. Let's get back talking about that. And then I have a few other things that I'd like to talk about. I always have way too much material to talk about during the week, for the show. It just builds up in me, and I just want to get it out. And this is, for me, really the best avenue for me to vent my feelings and my prepping to you guys here. So I appreciate you listening in. And if you have any questions, feel free to call in. I love questions. I love to ask questions. I love to answer questions. Whether I'm right or not, that's up to you to decide. So, talking about bugging out, that really is the quintessential element of being a prepper. Do we bug out or do we bug in? Do we not bug out? Do we not bug in? That is one of the most difficult questions and the most personal questions that a prepper could ask himself. So, in order to bug out or to provide assistance, that is why we built the 4Runner Evader. And whether Evader is the appropriate term, community response, and that's what we really hope to do, is use this in order to help others, to provide assistance, to bring in medical supplies in conjunction with our suppliers, with our sponsors, is to be of some help. And if you see me out on the freeway, say hi, honk at me, whatever it is. And I know I do get a lot of looks, and I hope that's really creating some awareness. And that's really all we hope to do is, PrepperCon, what's that? And if that sparks a bit of interest in you, in someone who takes a look at that and sees that wrap on my vehicle, then I really feel I've made a difference. And someone who's not a prepper, who doesn't even know what the word prepper means, it makes a lot of difference if they can just see, maybe I should get a little more food storage in my house. Maybe I should add a little bit more preps here and there. Maybe I should change things or look at the world a little bit differently. Why would someone think about prepping? I mean, the world is so rosy and so nice right now, and things are so good. I got a good job, and I'm happy. Family life is good. Why do I need to prep? I mean, why are these guys so focused on prepping? Do they know something we don't? So those are the thoughts and questions I hope to evoke in you listeners, and I hope that you can help your friends and neighbors and family just at least prick their interest so that they can start to make a difference, make a change in their personal preparedness, in preparing, in being self-reliant. And that's really a key word for me, is self-reliance. Love that word. I'm a stubborn person, and so are all my kids. And that's one thing I really realize in myself, that I want to do it for myself. I don't want to rely on anybody else. Although, to the flip side, it's not a bad thing to accept help. And a lot of times in my family, in my life, we've had to accept help as well. So to be on both sides of that on occasion I think is definitely a blessing. So in the last few minutes here, let's talk a little bit more about the 4Runner Evader. I want to, of course, talk quickly about a few sponsors that have helped us out with the rig, and then we'll move on. Low Range Off-Road is an off-road company based in Orem. They're a fabricator. They manufacture parts. They are one of the top retailers online for off-road parts, and these guys did the build on the 4Runner suspension, and they did a build video. So you can go to their YouTube channel at Low Range Off-Road on YouTube and lowrangeoffroad.com. They've got a blog there. They've got all kinds of cool parts. So if you're going to get stuff for your vehicle, check them out first. That's all I ask. They were great. They did a whole build video. You can see it's about half an hour long. So if you want to be able to install these components by yourself, you most definitely can. If you have the right tools, you have some time and some patience, and maybe some gloves so you don't bang up your knuckles, you can try and do some of this stuff yourself. And when we're talking about, I think suspension really is the key in creating a capable bug out vehicle. I'm an off-road guy. I've always loved to drive off-road, and so we've created a few little videos that are on the PrepperCon TV YouTube channel, as well as Prepper Talk Radio on YouTube. We've also posted them to PrepperCon on Facebook, as well as Prepared Guy and Prepper Talk on Facebook. I know there's a lot of pages and a lot of things to keep track of there, but check them out. We've done a little bit of kind of a speed test on the 4Runner, and so I'm learning to drive this thing. I'm learning to drive with this new suspension, learn to push it more to its limits. And the difference, obviously, between a stock vehicle going off-road and to be able to increase the speed is really dramatic. So take a look at these little videos. They're fun, and we're going to create some more and do some more fun things with the 4Runner Evader, trying to show you really the reason why we're thinking that the 4Runner, for me, is really kind of the ideal vehicle for a bug-out or community response vehicle. And I know I'm going to talk your ear off here for the next couple of minutes since Scott is gone, but I appreciate you bearing with me. And as you can see, I love talking about the technical aspects of prepping, of off-roading, of everything that that a true prepper, let me say true prepper, and let me, I guess, kind of define that, what a true prepper. I consider myself to be kind of, I guess, more on the extreme side of prepping. And not everybody needs to be, an extreme prepper. But if your mind's in the right place, in the prepper mindset, I should say, not necessarily the right place, but in the prepper mindset, that's where I'm at. So you can kind of relate to me and the things that I talk about. Now, with the 4Runner Evader, the ability to get in and out of difficult situations is a really top priority for me, because I am a kind of a traveling salesman, and putting yourself out and away from your home base, from your bug out location, from your bug in location, your home, can be dangerous. So getting out and getting back reliably, safely is really kind of the key reason. I don't want to be cooped up. I'm not a big proponent of bunkers, because once you're in your bunker, you're kind of stuck there. You're not going to go in and out of your bunker, most likely. I mean, it's always a possibility, obviously, but once you're in, you're kind of in. I prefer to be mobile, and I think in a lot of aspects, a lot of situations, being mobile is much more important than just hunkering down and waiting out the situation, especially when you have the mindset of like myself or Scott, where we want to be of help, we want to be of assistance. So thus the reason for the 4Runner Evader. Another quick sponsor I don't want to forget. When you lift your vehicle and put new shocks on and get any kind of change in the ride height, you need to do an alignment. That keeps your tires from wearing poorly, keeps you under control, keeps the track of the vehicle straight. And the company who provided our alignment is the alignment guys in American Fork. They were fantastic. They did it quickly and actually quite a bit less expensive than my typical shop that I go to. And they specialize in alignments and in frame straightening, those types of suspension issues. So if you need an alignment, they're just off Main Street in American Fork. The alignment guys, great company. Appreciate them stepping up and providing the alignment on the 4Runner. A few other things in our last few minutes here that my criteria on the 4Runner. Tires are extremely important. Especially off-road at high speeds, you can easily get a puncture traveling high speeds with sharp rocks off-road. So that my tire of choice, and they're not a sponsor, but I've worn these for years. They're called the BFG AT KO2. It's the newest version of their all-terrain tire. BFGs have been around forever. Those of you who run BFGs know that they're extremely tough, really durable tires, especially off-road. And we chose the all-terrain because it is a fairly quiet tire. It's a fairly aggressive tire for off-road, but still provides the quiet travel that you need in order to evade and avoid. Now, some of these big other bug-out vehicles run mud tires, and they're really noisy. You can hear them coming for miles. Another reason we chose the 4Runner because it's quiet. It's a V8, but the stock suspension, the stock exhaust, we're going to keep that all stock because it does have excellent horsepower as well as torque, and it's quiet and it's reliable. And so that's really the whole spiel of the build of the 4Runner Evader. I appreciate you listening to my rant this morning. Do something to increase your preparedness every day, every week. If that means making your vehicle more capable, if that's important to you, feel free to visit preparedguy.com and our blogs and so forth and find out more information. Thank you for listening, and thank you, of course, to Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kit designed for long-term storage and is tougher than nature. We'll see you guys next week.